Hi, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bella's Bookish Banter podcast. I'm your host, Bella. I'm a teenage girl who loves to read and talk about books, and if you do too, then this is the podcast for you. So please stick around. On today's episode, I'm going to be doing a little review of Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry by Joya Goffney. Guys, I loved this book so much. You don't even understand. I literally read this book in less than a day. Maybe not the smartest idea during exam week, but it was just so good. I could not put it down. And I'm so excited to talk about it. But first, I'm going to give you a little synopsis. The story follows Quinn, who is a high school senior months away from graduating. Quinn tracks her life in lists. She has lists of memories, lists of her regrets, lists of people she wants to kiss, to-do lists, and of course, a list of all the days she's ugly cried. She keeps all these lists in her journal. One day, she's working on a group project with her classmate Auden and Carter, who she may have a minor crush on. It isn't until these classmates leave that Quinn realizes her journal of lists is also gone, and in its place is Carter's journal. Of course, Carter is the first person Quinn interrogates, but Carter doesn't have Quinn's journal. And suddenly, Quinn is getting DMs on Instagram. Someone has her journal and is using it to blackmail her. They want her to complete everything on her to do before graduation list, or else all of her journal will be released to the public. Quinn obviously thinks it's Carter. Carter insists it isn't him, and to prove his innocence, he decides to team up with her to figure out who does have the journal. Story basically takes off from there. They go on this journey, friends join along the way. A lot is learned and discovered. And yeah, it's basically a story. It's a YA romance book, which let's talk about the romance for a second. The two love interests, Quinn and Carter, are so cute. The relationship was so cute. Um I really love the development of the relationship. It's not like it's not a slow burn, but it's also not like insta love, especially cuz they start off like disliking each other at the start of the book. So, there was like a pretty good build up to their relationship. It was so cute. All the teasing and the tension between them was just so fun to read about. I think they get together like 3 quarters into the book probably, so it's not like very late, but it's not like really early. And just the whole, yeah, like I said, the whole build up to their relationship was so good. Their interactions felt really real, and not like something I was reading. Like, I really forgot I was reading for so much of this book. I was just having so much fun reading it. I loved about the relationship was that Carter, especially, he makes the effort to understand where Quinn is coming from and to understand her. And she kind of does the same the whole time. They're like really thinking about each other, and doing what they can for each other, and it's just so sweet. And they have all these cute little moments, like they have late night phone calls. Also, okay, wait, actually, this may be like the teeniest spoiler in terms of the trope that is used. So if you don't want to know, then like skip ahead 15 seconds. But it's kind of the "it's always been you" trope, because you find out a little later into the book that they actually both have liked each other for a few years now, like, since they've known each other, despite acting like they didn't like each other. I didn't know how much I liked that trope until I read this book. I think the only other book I read with that trope was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and oh my gosh, it's just when you find out in the book, I was literally screaming. My little brother looked at me, he was like, "Are you okay?" Like, actually. But, like, it was so good, I loved it. There's, like, the whole friend group. Besides the love interest, there's 2 other characters, um, Livia and Auden, who, like, are also kind of on this journey with them of like they like start off going on these little adventures with them as they're trying to finish their to-do list. And then eventually they find out about the journal and they all try to help Quinn out and try to figure out who has her journal. And their whole friend dynamic was so good. So much banter. They were so I loved their friendship because, like, you could tell how much, like, they were there for each other. Throughout the book, they all have their own individual struggles, things they're going through and trying to figure out, and regardless of what the other people are going through, they're, like, there for them the whole time, trying to help them figure it out, and it was very much like a ride or die type of friendship, and, like, even though they hadn't known each other for so long, and like only recently being involved in each other's life. They had so much trust for each other and so much loyalty to each other, and they like all grow together as people. And it's so cute. And there's all these funny moments, there's all the sweet moments cuz there's two separate romances in the friend group too. Very, yeah, just a very sweet, very wholesome friend group. I really loved reading about them. Quinn, the main character, and her character growth in this book is just so good. She starts so as you know, Quinn documents her life in lists, like from all her biggest milestones to all her dirtiest secrets. And so she ties her like entire identity and her sense of self to this journal, which is why it's such a huge deal to her when this journal goes missing because she feels as though this like journal gives her like her whole sense of self. And because of that, she kind of places herself in this box, that she's she's this certain type of person. She does these types of things. She can't do these things, and she knows this because of her lists. And so she's very afraid to step out of that box, and she feels like she can't. She feels like she can't mess up because she has all these expectations for her that either from her parents or her friends or her classmates or even herself that she feels very obligated to meet. She doesn't leave very much room for herself to actually be herself and express how she is and to try new things and to make mistakes and make failures. And like so as she goes on this journey while she's trying to complete her to-do list and also figure out what like who has her journal, and going through all these things with her friends who are also helping her learn more about herself and figure herself out. She's discovering that, you know what, she is able to do these things that she thought she couldn't do. And, she tries new things. She learns that it's okay to mess up, that it's okay to make mistakes. And over like she becomes more comfortable in herself through all these different things but like she has to experience them, and she has to go out of her little comfort zone to experience these things. And it's such a good feeling to watch her go through that and learn all these things. Learning to live for herself and do things for herself, regardless of what it means for the people around her. A quote from the book: "There are enough closed doors and glass ceilings in the world. My comfort zone shouldn't be one of them." I think it really kind of sums up the way she's figured herself out, and she's learning that she is allowed to try new things and make mistakes and learn from them and grow from them. And that was just very cool to read about. As much as this book is a very it's really funny. It is like a fluffy little romance. It's very cute, it's very sweet, really funny, lots of banter. It does cover some serious topics, which I actually thought were done really well because they were mixed in and I think they were handled well, like easy in a way, easy for the reader to understand, and also like just told and shown to us really well while also keeping, the light fluffy theme of like the romance. So one thing the book does talk about is Alzheimer's disease. So Quinn does have a grandma who is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and she had a really close relationship with her grandmother, and so this like realization is really devastating to her. And so throughout the story, you see her as she's really sad about this obviously, and she's trying to come to terms with it. And her whole story, her like whole journey through this is that she is scared to go visit her grandma in the nursing home where she's being taken care of, as and scared she like won't see her as the way she was when she was little. This part of the story was it like hit a little closer to home. It felt much more real for me personally as someone who has a family member who has Alzheimer's disease. And I think a lot of the things Quinn was feeling, feel myself, and I could relate to them, and also not only the effect it has on you and the effect it has on that family member, but then all of your family as they're dealing with this, and like the struggles that you all go through and how you have to watch it hurt the people that you care about. And so I was like this this part of the story, I could really like, it really like, I could really feel it in my heart. And then, yeah, like, this part of the storyline really made me cry too. It was yeah, I think it was just handled really well. This book also, has a lot of conversations about race, as Quinn, the main character, is Black, and she's learning how to embrace her Blackness as someone who's, like, grown up in all these spaces of filled with predominantly white people, she's like struggling to express how she feels to a lot of people, sometimes even like her best friend, and even talking about these things with her parents, because having parents who grew up in a different time, and she doesn't know how to have these conversations with them, and she struggles to have this conversation with her dad, especially after something happens, and she realizes, like, as she's trying to feel more comfortable in her own skin, she realizes that maybe her dad doesn't feel as comfortable in his own skin, and so that kind of messes with her head too. And I think it really handles this really well, and it talks a lot about how these conversations can be really difficult to have, but nevertheless how important they are to have anyways. Quinn meets Carter and Olivia, who are like some of the first like actual like black friends that she's had. She really like finds herself when she hangs out with them, because she finds people that she can relate to, and she can talk about these things that she doesn't feel like she can talk about with her other friends who are white, or quote unquote friends. They're not really good friends. And I think it showed really well in the book, and it was another thing that really came through really strongly. It also has a conversation about one of Quinn's quote unquote friends, who tells Quinn she doesn't see her skin color. She just thinks of her as a friend. And something that was, I think, it's also really important to talk about. So Quinn acknowledges this, and like she says like her skin is part of her identity, and it's not a bad thing they are different, but that doesn't mean that they can act exactly as if they're the same. It's important to acknowledge that they have differences and celebrate them, but like you don't have to make them a bad thing. But it's also not like you can just choose not to see it when it's something that affects her and plays such a big part in her identity. That part of the book was also really interesting to read about. There are so many more discussions and topics covered in this book surrounding race, that I think are all handled and talked about really well. Another like more serious topic kind of that the book touches on is poverty versus wealth, and the difference that can make, when it comes to school and privileges, and like as they're like getting ready for college, the way it has affected Quinn and Carter, both from different sides of the story. And so I thought that was really done. I thought that was done really well too. And like I said, the book handles all of these like conversations that I think are important conversations to have. All these topics, it handles them really well, but still doesn't take away from the whole theme of the book, which is just like a fluffy, fun romance. It still felt like a very fluffy, fun romance. It still felt like this whole journey of self-discovery with Quinn. All these sweet, fun moments mixed in with these more serious topics, but like I think it's done really well. All right, so before I wrap up this review, I thought it would be really fun to recommend you, well, okay, because I really recommend this book. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. And so I thought it would be fun to recommend you 3 songs that I think go really well with this book, to like convince you a little bit more to read the book. Also, I just thought it was fun. Um so for some reason, all of the songs I chose happen to be by the same artist and also from the same album. Unsurprisingly, this artist is the amazing Taylor Swift. So, I'm not gonna give you really any context for why I chose the songs, but I'm just gonna like tell you the songs, and then yeah. The first song I chose is Getaway Car by Taylor Swift. X marks the spot where we fell apart. We never had a shotgun shot in the cabin. The getaway car, we were flying. Okay, and then the next song I chose is This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things by Taylor Swift. This song actually goes really well. I think it matches the theme really well. It was so nice throwing big parties, jump into the pool from the balcony, one swimming in a champagne. Therein lies the issue. Friends don't try to trick you, turn you on the phone and mind twist you. Yeah, that was that was the second song. And then the last song I chose is King of My Heart by Taylor Swift. All the boys in their expensive cars with the Range Rovers and the Jaguars never took me quite where you do. And all at once you are the one I have been waiting for, King of My Heart. Great song. All 3 of these songs I recommend to you. I think correlate with the book, and so I'm recommending you those 3 songs along with the book. Overall, to wrap up this review, I love, love, love this book. Oh my god, it's definitely a new favorite. At first, I thought I was gonna give this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars, but after sitting in it and thinking for a while, I decided I'm actually gonna give it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I loved it so much. The romance, The friendships, all the characters, everything was just so perfect. And I definitely recommend you this book. Please go read it. It's so amazing. And with that, that is the end of this week's mini bonus episode, kind of. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did filming it. If you would like to stay updated on the podcast, please go check it out on Instagram at Bella's Bookish Banter. If you want to talk about books or even just recommend me some books, I would love to hear from you. So you can send me a DM on Instagram or Pinterest at Bella's Bookish Banter. If you're listening from Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please feel free to leave a rating or a review. It really does help out the podcast so much. And yeah, that's the end of this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing day. Goodbye.